Brad, did you know that we live just barely far enough apart that we could do the Foucault-Fizeau experiment to determine the speed of light?
Okay, the second time you said that out loud, I understood who you were talking about. I'm not trying to impugn your pronunciation of French surnames.
I am a perfect pronunciator of names, as is well established.
Now I have a better idea of who and what you're talking about, but I've never heard of that experiment. What is that?
So at some point in the indeterminate past, which I probably knew at one point or another, these two people independently developed similar experiments to determine the speed of light by taking a mechanism that had mirrors and spinning discs and prisms and stuff in it, like a brass age of brass kind of like Age of Wonders, whatever, post Renaissance, pre-industrial revolution, probably, I don't know, mechanism that if you put far enough away from a source of light, you could bounce the light off of the mirrored prism thing at nighttime and have it reflect back, and use that they both independently use that to pretty accurately, given the scales involved, calculate the speed of light in the 17 or 1800s, maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
Welcome to Will's Science Hour. Will's Spurious Science Hour.
I got to sign up for your class at the Academy of Science.
Yeah. Hey, this might be science. That's welcome to my new podcast. Hey, this might be science.
Are there a lot of examples of the kind of two great minds thought of this thing more or less simultaneously? Like, I guess the Newton Leibniz one is the big one, right?
The calculus, yeah.
Like that's the one that even I know from school. But like, did that happen a lot? Do you know?
I feel like the Bohr thing. Expert? Yeah, I feel like the Bohr thing happened. Bohr did the atomic model at the same time as somebody else, but I don't remember who the other guy was, because it turns out something it happened a lot when you're dealing with millions of people and millions of brains. Even in really esoteric stuff, like, people do the same work at the same time.
A million monkeys and a million typewriters.
Yeah.
Something. No, that's not the same thing.
Yeah, eventually you get the Gilmore Girls. That's exactly it.
Not trying to compare mathematicians and physicists to simians, just for the record.
Well, but the thing is, the math is the same for the monkeys and for us. So
that's true.
Yeah, the great simian mathematician is out there. We just haven't found them yet.
It's true. It's the next great breakthrough.
Welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Will.
I am Brad. Hello, Will.
Hello, Brad. This is a rare afternoon recording.
I know. It's
early evening even.
Well, I started to say the sun is out, but it's not out. It's a foggy, damp mess here.
God, I wish it was foggy. It's like 95 degrees in here right now.
Yeah, but is it dry?
No. It's humid, 95 degrees.
Okay, no, you can keep that one then.
Yeah, I felt like there's an old Robin Williams joke about applying deodorant to your nethers because it's so hot and sweaty, and I feel like I'm in that territory right now.
But who is there to offend these days?
Look,
I mean, I can't speak for your wife and child. I mean, they might not be upset.
Brad, they're out of the house.
Oh, okay then.
They're having a socially distanced play date riding scooters in the parking lot of a local gym.
You're free and clear to.
I'm barely wearing a shirt.
You can smell as much as you want right now.
My beard it's too long for this weather. That's the thing that's becoming clear.
I guess I can assume from that I can infer that you're not wearing a lot of masks right now, or not putting yourself into a lot of positions to wear masks, because with a beard like that.
So it's a problem. Yeah. But I realized yesterday that when I took the trash out to the curb, that was the furthest I'd gone from the front door since the last time I took the trash out to the curb, which was the week before.
Okay. Now you're in it.
Well, the thing is, there's so many people around here walking around not wearing masks anymore.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not going out.
Yes.
I'm not even going to go for a walk. And if I go out for walks at night when there aren't as many people out, we have mountain lions and coyotes here. So no, thank you, sir.
I think I might rather take my chances with them than the virus.
Yeah, I mean, look, I literally was looking on Amazon the other day to see if you could order bear mace, because that's what they say. If you're going walking at dusk, you carry like chemical mace to blast the mountain lion with, so that it hopefully just maims you instead of kills you.
One way or another, you got to protect yourself.
I mean, there's nothing scarier than a 200-pound house cat.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, we're all guinea pigs in that world, Brad. It's not good.
Indeed. No. Just ask my guinea pigs. If they could tell you. All right, what are we talking about here?
So there was an Apple event, and at first we thought we weren't going to talk about this, and then we talked about it a little bit, and then I went and watched some videos of what they've added to iOS 14. I was like, I went from thinking, yeah, I'll probably update when the operating system comes out in the fall to, well, I need to get the beta installed on my phone because this looks dope.
You started you were going to update at 14.1, right? Like that's the standing policy, right? My
standing policy, now that I don't have to update for work, is yes, I will update when it seems like it's not janky based on reports from the field.
Yeah.
But first we have a little bit of a catch up because Western Digital announced we talked about the shingled drives at length a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
They have renamed. So now if you buy a Western Digital Red drive, as I understand it, that can be a shingled drive that is not for ZFS NASs, but is fine for mass storage that doesn't involve ZFS.
I think we talked about last time. I did, in fact, do that very thing, right?
Yes, exactly.
I ended up with one of those. I don't think we've ever even actually fully updated. I got that thing replaced.
Yeah, but you had to go through a special person process.
Yes, I hate doing this. I hate doing this, but this is probably the angriest I have ever been at a company that I bought a product from.
I can see that.
And leveraged my social media presence. But my understanding is that at this point, I mean, they have taken such a drubbing over this that I think just about anybody who calls their customer support and raises this specific issue is going to get their drive replaced.
That's what we've been told. Yes.
I mean, there's a straight up class action lawsuit forming. Like, it is pretty clear that they have taken their lumps and figured out that they can't get away with this.
Brad, is this supposed to be a question episode? It is, because this is the last episode of the month.
To be? This is an inopportune time for you to figure that out.
Shoot.
Like 10 minutes into the episode.
I was like, it's the 26th.
There's no reason we can't push it off a week, right? I mean, this stuff is timely.
Yeah, well, let's do it next week. It's fine. Or maybe we'll do the patron episode as this question episode this month. We'll figure it out.
Better ask the boss man, though.
We'll consult the experts. Anyway, so if you want something that works with the TLDR here is if you want a Western Digital drive that is not shingled and is guaranteed to work with your NAS drives in ZFS.
Yeah. I've heard of like Synology's also having problems with these SMR drives. It's like ZFS is the worst for sure, but the word is they should not be used in NASs, period.
I thought Synology's ran FreeNAS.
No. They use
they
use their own proprietary software. There's actually a little like sub community, a micro community of people who have reverse engineered the Synology operating system to run on PCs. So you can just install that on any x86 box. People can't see it right now, but your eyes are
that's
heavily
such a bad
lidded.
Idea.
Yeah.
I have a big wooden mallet under my desk for just this kind of situation when I need to knock some sense into somebody.
Yes,
violence is never the answer.
Not usually.
So yeah, Red Plus is what you want if you want to not jack up your NAS.
I love that they have just continued updating the same blog post for months at this point. They just keep posting new updates to it after the initial response was so god awful, which was essentially like, maybe you should buy the even more expensive version of this drive to do the thing that it says it's supposed to do. But they're replacing people's drives now. The upshot is the WD Red branded drives are not what you should buy for a NAS anymore.
Yeah.
Period. Those are shingled. They are bad for that application. Now, also, we should point out that they've always had this WD Red Pro tier, which is much more expensive.
3 tiers of Red drives now?
Well, there are now, yes. But previously it was Red and Red Pro, but even if you bought the Red, you were fine for a straight up standard NAS.
What's green for? Is green for like if you want to archive something and put it in a fire save?
Yeah, I think the greens are the budget drives. Is that right? Or is the blue the blues the budget drives?
Blue and green are both kind of this. I don't care. I'm done putting spinning disks in my normal computer. I think I have an 8 terabyte drive in there right now. I hope that that's the last one I ever have to have.
I have resolved that I will never put another mechanical drive into my desktop PC. I'll put them into a network storage thing. But anyway, So they had the WD or the Red Pro, which was the super expensive like deluxe version, but the regular Reds were supposed to be fine for NASAs. That is no longer true. They have now also rolled out an intermediary Red Plus.
I hate this.
So there's Red Plus, and Red Pro, and Red Plus is what Red used to be.
So Red is garbage tier. Red Plus is okay. Red Pro is probably too expensive for normal people.
Do not buy Reds. Buy Red Plus or better. Like, I love that they literally just brought back the model numbers of the old Reds as the Red Plus. That's their solution to this.
So some poor bastard has to slap a different sticker on the front of the box and they call it a day.
Or maybe take a look at Seagate or Toshiba.
Oh, well, okay.
Anyway.
Hey, Brad.
There's progress here.
Hey, Brad.
Hello?
I have something that I want to talk about. It's called Hey! Exclamation point.
Hey. Can you tell me about Hey? Because I've been seeing people complain about this for a good amount of time, and I have no idea what it. Yeah, all I know is that it is related to the App Store and some crappy Apple policy.
Yeah. So Hey is a new mail client from the people who make Basecamp, which is a productivity tool for teams and businesses. It's like if you took a message board and made it into Teams thing, where Slack is like if you take an IRC client and turn it into a Teams thing.
Huh, all right.
So it's like a combination of Trello and a message board, and it's a like we used to use it at Maximum PC. It was really good. Still is. Tons of people use it. They think email sucks, as I think probably everyone agrees. And I feel
like that's the pitch of like every at least every other email app that comes out at this point. Hey, email sucks. They all start that way.
If you ask 9 out of 10, if this is the Family Feud, and I asked 9 out of 10, if I asked 100 people at some socially distant gathering whether they liked email or not, I bet like 94 of them would have said no. Email is kind of sucks.
The survey does say.
So they released a new email client as a closed beta called Hey.
Is this how it's styled? Hey! Exclamation mark.
Yeah, it's got kind of an unfortunate bubbly font too, but we don't have to talk about that.
Okay.
It's very friendly.
HEY! Exclamation mark.
Yeah. It's not a client, so it's not like old Inbox was prior to Gmail buying it, where it was a client for Gmail. This is actually an email provider. You get a whatever name you want at hey.com address. You can forward your Gmail and whatever addresses you want to it, and it knows how to handle that. But and I wanted to try it, so I did. Around the time they launched this, you launch an iOS app, you launch a iPad OS app, you launch a Mac app, all the things that you need for a new mail client. The apps for the iOS and iPad OS, I believe, got through the app review process, and then they tried to do a bug fix, and Apple said, "Hey, wait, no, you can't do this. If you want to do this, hey." If you want to do this, you have to, like, this is an app that doesn't work if you don't subscribe to the service. Where in order to put this in our store, you have to like let people who discover it through the store click a button and sign up for it, which means that then also it's paid. It's a paid email service. So it's the product, not you.
There's no free tier.
Well, we'll get there.
Okay.
They don't have if you download an app and sign up for something through that app. So for example, if I download Disney Plus from the App Store and I sign up for Disney Plus through the App Store, then Apple gets 30% of the money that Disney Plus charges me as their fee.
I had a feeling that's where this was going.
Now, in some cases, like if you're making a game and you're selling a game for $6, that's been the industry standard on Steam and other places for a really long time. Epic has kind of bucked that and changed that price structure a little bit over the years. But for the most part, 30%. That doesn't work on things like books and movies and things like that, because the price structures for those things are fixed by the publishers of those pieces of content. So if Amazon puts the Kindle app on the store and lets you buy books through the Kindle app on the App Store, and their deal with Hachette, one of the publishers, is that they get 30% of all sales, then all of a sudden Amazon gets nothing out of that deal, right? That Amazon gets 30% of all sales of that book. That means Amazon sees no money off of the Hachette sale, and it actually costs them money to sell books through the Kindle app. So it kind of makes sense that the Kindle app you can't buy books in the Kindle app, but they still let you view your books that you've bought on the Kindle through the web browser or whatever to show up in that app. Same thing for Netflix and a bunch of other what Apple calls reader apps. Hey has released Basecamp in the same model for a long time because it's a B2B business where your company pays for the service, and people who use that, it's like Slack. You use Slack, you don't pay for Slack with Apple Pay or through the App Store. Your company pays $25 or $50 a month or whatever for each person who uses Slack. It's less than that. The upshot is Apple said, hey, you can't do this bug fix because it violates our guidelines. So then the Hey people made a real big public campaign, which is easy to do because a boatload of people use Basecamp and everybody loves them. They're great. And they had a big fuss for like a week. And this all came to a head the Friday before WWDC started, when Apple review people quietly said, hey, let's figure out a way we can work. Phil Schiller sent some public notes that were like, no, we don't want apps that don't work. And then the Hey people posted literally dozens of apps that work in exactly the same way that are allowed, including other mail providers like Fastmail and stuff like that. Gmail, Google Photos, all these services don't really work if you don't have an account that you pay for outside of the iOS ecosystem. The TLDR is that they're not going to block bug fixes for store guideline violations anymore. So if they let your app into the store with a mistake over guideline violations, they're not going to do that. If you offer a free tier or a free trial or something like that, so Hey will give you right now a randomized email address that you can try out the app with, then you bypass all of this stuff and you can do it just like you always did. I've been using Hey for the last 2 weeks. It's really good. It has some weird naming stuff in there. Like instead of having an inbox, you have an M box.
Yeah, I was wondering if that was a typo, but apparently
it's for
not.
Important emails, Brad.
I don't know how I feel about that.
I put next to that in the quotes, in parentheses, unfortunate name.
Yeah, I went to their website and it seems to be injected with maybe just a tad too much personality for my taste. It's kind of up there with like the Discord loading, the loading tooltips and stuff like that. Like twee internet humor only goes so far.
It's not as bad as Microsoft. Is what I will say.
Okay.
The upshot on the client is it's neat. You basically, when it sees a new sender, it says, hey, will you tell us where these emails should go? And they either go into the inbox with other important emails that you should see, and then can schedule replies or like bunch up a bunch of emails. So you reply to them all at one fell swoop. So you're not like just doing one email a day, every 15 minutes, like insane people do. The feed, which is kind of like the stuff that you want to look at, but maybe isn't urgent to respond to. So stuff like newsletters and advertisements and stuff like that go in there. And paper trail, which is receipts and like passcodes and all the things that you do probably want to see when they come in, and probably keep like tracking numbers mailed from your Portuguese RAM manufacturer or something like that.
Yes, common occurrence.
And the tools for replying to them are really nice. Like you can schedule the replies, you can dump them all in a bucket. So at 4:30 when you do email every day, you just do them all at one time and you're done. That's it about Hey. They solved this problem before the app before their Worldwide Developer Conference started on Monday.
You think it was a priority for them? Like, was this enough of a public boondoggle that they wanted to get it resolved?
My guess is that in the world of normal human beings who don't care about stuff like this, no one knew about it. But in the world of people who are going to watch developer conferences and make apps for like just to be clear, this is a major problem for Apple, right? They've taking 30% of every app that generates revenue through iOS is a bad business. It's good revenue for them. It's going to fuck over their ecosystem and cause them problems in the long term, I think.
I think so. Huh.
And I hope that this has caused them to think about, something that's more akin to an affiliate model for their pricing on, especially for something like a mail app where like their delivery for a mail, their contribution for the mail app is accessibility in the store, making that app visible in the store.
Sure.
And then delivering an application that's probably 20 or 30 megabytes or something like that.
Yeah. It's not much.
Yeah, it's not like you're downloading Dota, Dota Underlords updates that are 200 megs every other week to tens of thousands of people.
30% is a pretty good return on the amount of effort they are putting into facilitating that purchase.
Agreed. Anyway, so that's Hey. Yeah. And now let's talk about the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Anybody can try Hey now. It's $99 a year. I think it's good.
Oh, I meant to ask if you if you find that you can live with the randomized email address they give you, can you just use it indefinitely?
I don't know about that. That's a good question. Donkey, llama, monkey.
Yes.
at hey.com.
Maybe I'll go see what I get.
Yeah, that's
maybe I'll spin the email roulette wheel and see. But so WWDC happened this week, and
yeah,
we were deciding whether to talk about it or not. We were conscious of the fact that our last episode about this topic was less than 2 months ago. But
Brad, I got to be honest.
Yeah,
I have literally no memory of that episode.
That's impressive.
It's all gone.
It was believe the first week of May, so 6-7 weeks ago,
or 100 years, as the case may be.
Yes, I understand. I fully get it. But even though we just spent a full episode talking about ARM MacBooks, it seems like there's enough here on that topic, and also like everything else. Like there's kind of a lot going on. It seems like
it seems like a really big year for iOS, and like before anybody starts, like they're adding a ton of stuff that Android has had for as much as a decade in some cases.
Yeah. Should we start with iOS? Like, I can't believe at the conference where they announced, yes, we are going to ARM on MacBooks, that iOS actually feels like maybe the thing that's worth the most. Talking about the most.
Yeah, we can start with iOS. Yeah, let's do it. The big thing for me is that they're letting you set browser and email defaults.
I sincerely thought that would never ever happen. Like it took them so long to implement this that I actually don't care anymore. Like years ago, like for years, I was like rabid about the fact that they didn't have this. But
it's been a pain in the ass for so long that I haven't even like. I use Gmail in a web browser on my desktop now, and I don't use Chrome, so there's no easy way for me to make. I just stopped using Mail to links. Right. I just always open the email if I need to send an email.
Right.
And with the share sheet stuff, it became less important, but it is nice that now when you hit the send an email button in an app, it will open up the email client of your choice.
Yes.
So Gmail, Hey, Fastmail, Proton Mail, whatever you want, you got it. Done. Same browser, I think, is a more important thing because like if you're living entirely within the Google ecosystem, then like Gmail knew to open Chrome if you had it installed, or would give you the option at least. But like other apps didn't necessarily do that. And when I switched to Firefox on mobile, I lost all of the Firefox. Nothing opens Firefox basically. So this is huge. It's been 12 years since the App Store opened.
Okay,
that they haven't supported this.
God, I can't believe it's been that long since iPhones have been around. That's. I'm not going to get into it. Forget it. It's too late.
Look, Apollo 13 is 25 now, Brad.
It's too late on a Friday to talk about.
Yeah.
Do you think so like they've given on this longstanding policy? There are other examples like the iPhone SE, which is like by far probably the best value in an iPhone they've ever put out.
Oh, it's probably the best value in a phone, frankly. It benchmarks better than any Android phone, I think.
Like, is all of this just driven by, I'm not going to say shrinking market share necessarily, but I mean, like Android is so ubiquitous at this point. Like, is this just them like scrabbling to keep up?
The almighty aller? I think they just want to make more money, Brad.
Okay.
Like, look,
I haven't kept up for a while, but it felt like for some number of quarters in a row, it was like, iPhones didn't sell as much as they projected this time. And maybe that business has plateaued. I don't know where they're at with that stuff. I
mean, when you're selling billions of units a year, it's hard to further expand the market.
Yeah, that's fair.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, the people that I know that work at Apple and the friends that I have that work at Apple are almost uniformly the kind of people who are never satisfied with good enough.
Okay.
Which is it's one of the things that I've always liked about Apple. And even when Apple was in the deepest of dark times in early OS 10, late OS 9 era, like they were still doing things that nobody else was doing because they believed that was the way that you should be doing it, even if the hardware wasn't capable enough to do the things that they were trying to do at the time.
Well, sure. But I guess the examples that I'm trying to highlight here are, I mean, there are issues of quality and then there are issues of control. And the stuff I'm talking about falls under the latter, where it's like they charged a ton of money for their phones because they could, right?
Yeah.
Like they forced you to use their apps for everything because they could. And like, I guess that's what I'm really asking is, are we at a point where they can't do that stuff anymore because the competition is stiff enough?
Well, I mean, I think they're going to continue charging a lot of money for their phones because everybody's like they pushed the whole market toward charging $1,000 for phones, right?
Sure, but there is an option for a very good iPhone now that is like competitive with, mid-range pricing from other vendors.
I mean,
and that didn't exist before,
It's true. Yeah, you're right. I mean, they're pushing down. I mean, probably, they are trying to expand market share. I guess that's what the SE means. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
The stuff that they've changed are real, like, quality of life. And for people who use the phone as their primary computer, this is some real quality of life stuff. Like they're fixing a lot of UI stuff and adding a lot more. I think Dieter Bohn at The Verge called it complexity, just like as not necessarily negative, but it's optional complexity because they're starting, like, the defaults are still the same simple, straightforward iPhone interface you've always used, but now they're giving users like us the option to add more things on top of that make it suit our specific needs more appropriately. And I think that's I think this is really good. Like the stuff that they're doing with the widgets is really neat. I don't know how much time you spent on Android lately, but when you have an Android phone, you can put widgets. You know, the home screen isn't just the list of all of the apps that are on the device like it is on iOS. You have an app tray that has the complete list, and then you have the home screen. You can put apps and like arrange them how you want and put widgets on there. And then the widgets are like, I mean, it's like the widgets that Apple had with OS 10 on the dashboard 12 years ago.
Right.
Or Congregate. Was it? No, not Congregate. It was, oh God, what was the name of the thing that Yahoo bought that did the widgets on your PC desktop?
Jeez. I have no idea.
Anyway,
but yes, they have doggedly clung to their just simple grid of app icons since the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So until now.
So the app icons still flow from the top left, which remains dopey, but whatever, maybe they'll change that next year. The widgets you can grab, they're similar to the widgets that are in the tray on the left side of the home screen now.
I think out of the box it's the same widgets, right? Or it's the same. I mean, they may be redesigned, but it's a stock app. It's a weather app. It's like the basics that you expect to see there.
The defaults are the same. Developers have to redesign these.
Yeah.
Because they're always visible to use a little bit less power in specific ways. What I mean is
they haven't come up with any like wildly new widget ideas to include at least in the beta, right? It was all pretty standard stuff.
The stuff that I saw was pretty standard. I mean, it's funny. The widgets that I use the most are things like the battery for my AirPods, and I have a Smart Things and a Harmony one that are like the two most common things. Like there's a Harmony one that lets me turn off all the TVs in the house, which is really nice. And there's a Smart Things one that lets me see if like doors are open or lights are on when we're away. Not that ever happens anymore. The thing that's cool is that you can stack these widgets so that you have all of your widgets in one bucket, so to speak.
Yeah, I was really impressed by that. And it seems like you can just kind of swipe through them pretty quickly.
Yeah. And more than that, they're adding logic to let the widgets claim primacy. Like, for example, if you have a weather app and there's a storm coming, presumably the weather app will be the thing that's on the front so that you know there's a thunderstorm coming or a snowstorm coming or whatever, when you don't necessarily need. And they're smart about things like if you don't have a calendar meeting for the next day, then you probably don't need the calendar one to be at the top of the list, right?
Yeah. There's actually, we'll get into it, but there's like numerous examples to me in this beta of let data processing and algorithms determine how your phone works.
Which yeah, as the phones get more complicated and there's more things to do on them, seems like I want that. Like I want
assuming it works properly. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. But I want all of my games in one place, and I don't want to have to do that myself.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So like that's the app. They're not calling it an app drawer. That's the Android term,
call
right?
it
or app tray. App library is
library. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that's another example of that is a thing that will just supposedly intelligently group all your apps into. Because I do the same thing right now. Like I've got a games folder and here's a financial folder, a transit folder, whatever. But
yeah, so I'm bad. I've gotten to the point that I have real games. I have like video games. I have board games. I have like Snapchat and Evernote and stuff that I use occasionally, but really never touch. Realistically, I could put everything into like one folder because I just use search for everything now. I don't ever look at I hardly ever scroll.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but perhaps the thing that I am the most excited about in this, or at least that I think is going to be the most useful, is a simple alphabetized master list of apps, which is part of the app library. They're just going to give you a gigantic list of all the apps that you have on your phone in order and let you scroll through them.
You know what I want? I want to be able to take a thing that's coded by the primary color in the app and just arrange my apps in rainbow. So it starts with red and goes all the way down to black.
Right. Yeah.
You can turn off whole pages of apps. So like if you're going on vacation and all of your work stuff is on one page, you could just
that's a good idea.
flip that off while you're gone.
Wow.
And don't see it anymore.
Huh. It'd be cool. It'd be cool if you could also tell it to silence notifications for any app that's on a hidden page.
Oh God, that would be, I would hope that would happen, but I guess that's probably, that's a iOS 15 feature. Don't get maybe 28. I don't know. Let's not get crazy here.
Sure.
The app library, adding the tray type thing as a, it seems like it's an extension of the pull down search that's been in iOS for the last couple of years. Seems really good. That has smart grouping as well. So you can bundle all of your productivity stuff and all of your games and all of that stuff together. It seems like maybe that stuff will even be based on time, so that the apps that you use, so like you can have a folder that's the apps that you use based on time. Like I mostly look at the Kindle app late in the evening when I want to read a book, and I do the crossword in the morning when I'm drinking coffee. And like if you do that, it'll put the calendar and the crossword in the morning stuff and the whatever in the evening, so that you only see the things you use at specific times in the most convenient locations. They've changed the way notifications work, so that especially for stuff that's like a modal full screen notification right now, like a call or a FaceTime call or something like that, so that they're just little small drop downs from the top, so you won't be tapping on something on the bottom of your phone and accidentally pick up a call from someone you don't want to pick up. They added a thing that's like instant apps on Android. It's called App Clips. This is like if you've ever tried to use pay by phone to park a car in the city, or rented one of those scooters, or you have like a Safeway club card or something like that. This is like a mini. You just download 10 megabytes of the app, the 10 megabytes of the app you need to complete a transaction with Apple Pay, and you can pay for your parking or whatever with that.
Do you know if you still have to go dig that out of the App Store, or is there any kind of automated way to serve it to you, like detect what you're trying to do somehow? I don't know if there's anything in place for that. QR
codes and NFC can take place of having to search for it manually. So like if you bump your phone on the parking meter, on the trash scooters on the sidewalk, then it'll automatically open up that little snippet and you can pay for it and go on.
Feels like the future.
Well, and the neat thing is that app will like hang around with like a little dotted line around it for a while.
Yeah.
But if you don't use it again, it just goes away.
They just silently delete it after a while.
Poof. Yeah,
and it's been a while. It's been a few years since I saw a feature with an iPhone or an iOS release and thought like that's a future feature,
Yeah. Well, and
here we are.
And if you want, so it creates the account for you automatically using the Apple ID login stuff. It pays with the Apple Pay. And then if you want to add the full app later and get a receipt or something, then you can, or you can just trash the whole thing and it goes away automatically after a few days.
That's cool.
Just to be clear, I think everything we've talked about so far, except for the widget stacking, is all things that Android has had for a while.
Yes.
Picture in picture for video, including FaceTime. So I don't know if you FaceTime a lot.
Not really.
So I FaceTime my parents because of my daughter a fair amount. And if you alt tab into another like app from FaceTime, your video pauses and they go away. So presumably all of the supported devices are fast enough now that doesn't happen. Stuff like Siri bubbling up from the bottom of the screen instead of being a full page interface now. It's like a little floaty magic ball looking thing at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
They didn't.
Yeah, that YouTube, that kind of hands-on demo that you sent me of the beta, like it just looked like a much more thoroughly multitasking oriented device than it used to.
It looks like a lot of the things that came to iPad OS over the last couple of revisions.
And I don't know if that's just an effect of the phones are finally getting fast enough and have enough memory to actually be able to handle all that stuff simultaneously. But it seemed like a lot more dragging things around, putting things side by side, things on top of each other. Like the phone just seems much more capable, and the interface facilitates you doing a lot more stuff at one time.
Well, but I mean, at the same time, the thing that was really clear looking at those videos and talking to people who've been using the beta more, and like I said, I'll install it this week, so we'll talk about it on the podcast, on the Discord some. I feel like all of that stuff is optional. Like where on Android, they kind of throw that stuff right at you at the beginning. They're like, hey, what widgets do you want on your home screen? This is something that you're going to have to know how to do. And I think in this case, it's actually like, usually I'm kind of anti that, but in this case, I think it's probably a pretty good choice. Cause like my dad my dad's not going to want widgets. Widgets will fuck him all kinds of up. Right. But like, I've I have looked at the things that Android can do for years and been like, man, if this had iMessage support, I would have gone a long time ago. Just generally speaking, Siri is pretty good now. I can't believe I'm saying this. It's pretty good.
Okay.
Like it does the things that I want when I'm driving. Not that ever happens again. But like I can play music on Spotify using Siri, and that happened sometime in the last like 14 months. Pocket Cast supports Siri now, which is awesome. With Homebridge, I can control smart things using the Apple Home support, and that works really with the HomeKit support. That works really well. It's a surprisingly functional voice interface, and it definitely was not that when I got my iPhone 10 2-3 years ago now. And this will work with iPhone 6s and up.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked when I saw that list and it went that far back.
I mean,
oh wait, did they cut out the regular 6? Is it definitely just 6S?
I think it's just 6S. Okay. The regular 6 has been really slow for a couple of years now. So
yeah, I would believe it. I'm surprised. Let's say, well, they are pretty good about long-term support. I'd started to say I'm surprised even the iPhone 7 can take this, but I guess the 7 still.
I don't think I would not say that they are good with long-term support
compared to. I see a lot of Android owners saying they wish that their carriers or their manufacturers were half as good as Apple about that stuff.
In terms of getting the software update, as to whether the software update is fast enough to be usable.
Oh, trust me. I remember I put, what was it? iOS. I can't remember. What was the worst iOS on the 3G? Was it 4? I want to say iOS 4 worked on the 3G and rendered the phone borderline unusable.
4 or 5. Yeah. One of those. That's when you switched to Windows Mobile, I think.
Yes. I remember. Don't trust me. I'm not saying they're great, but I think they're probably the best relative to others.
I think once the product gets mature in the way that the 14th generation of iOS has, they're better is what I would say. Like, I still think that I think this year the Apple Watch Series 2 loses support, presumably, which for a product that I have a literal 40-year-old watch that still keeps perfect time feels pretty shitty to me. But,
yes.
What
watch
do I know?
Is a different story for sure.
They one of the things people found in the betas is they've added tap shortcuts. So you can tap the back of the phone 2 or 3 times and you can bind that to any Siri shortcut. So that means you can use it, like you can tap the back of the phone twice to launch Google Assistant, for example, or to disable your Pi-hole for 10 minutes or
just one extra input. One
extra multifunctional
input button. Right.
Yeah.
Is that, I assume that just uses the gyroscope or the accelerometer?
Both together.
So motion detection kind of thing. Yeah.
Yep. That's it. They added a bunch of new controller support. They added a kind of surprising amount of game stuff.
Yeah, I was surprised to see this. To be clear, the basic support for regular controllers is in now, right? Isn't that a iOS 13?
It came in with iOS 13, but it has some weird gaps. For example, the Apple controller spec doesn't include clicky sticks. So when you play something on like a Steam Link or PlayStation streaming thing or one of those services, the clicky sticks didn't work for a long time. I haven't used that in a while, so I don't know if they work now. But like you had to come up with another corded entry to solve for clicking the right stick in games that require you to click the right stick.
Huh.
So now they're supporting, it looks like everything the controllers can do. Like the DualShock 4 supports the touchpad, the clicky pad, the clicking and touching the touchpad, gyroscopic controls.
I want to say it even supports the light bar on that thing.
Well, so right now the light bar turns like Apple Arcade pink when you use it.
Okay.
Sometimes the games will change the color, I think.
Huh.
But yeah, it supports everything. On the Xbox, they're supporting the Elite V2, the Bluetooth one, because they do only support Bluetooth controllers. So the original generation of Xbox One controllers don't work. But they support the extra haptic rumble in the triggers, and they support paddles on the Elite controller and something else.
It's pretty robust. It's impressive.
Super robust. Yeah. And Xbox adaptive controller support, which is huge.
Yeah. And
keyboard and mouse support,
which is, I assume, universal across mobile. Like it works with the iPad as well. Well, I mean, the iPad obviously has had like Bluetooth keyboards for a while and stuff, but
I think it still has to. I don't think you can plug in like your USB gaming mouse. I think it still has to be a Bluetooth mouse. But yeah, like you said, it's more complex. They're opening everything up in a way that I'm a little surprised by.
Like the across the board, the whole story with all this iOS and mobile stuff from this just feels like a different Apple to me. Like a much less intent on controlling every end to end everything in their ecosystem kind of Apple.
I mean, Steve Jobs died 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Johnny Ive left almost 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
Like I feel like and this ARM switch, typically Apple has done a pretty good job making big cultural and like these kind of big cultural changes when they've had an architecture change, and like unifying Mac OS and iOS on the same architectures is a big deal.
Yeah. Like the kind of the Apple thoughtfulness of design and like quality of industrial design and like fit and finish and build quality combined with like more choice, more control for the user, more flexibility, like more like embracing more open standards and stuff feels like the best possible version of Apple to me, honestly.
Well, and there's other. Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly right. It's and they're also doing some real futury stuff too. Like one of the things that I didn't realize is that the AirPod Pros have gyroscopes in them in addition to accelerometers. Like they've always had accelerometers because you can tap them and get and use that as like a answer the phone or play your music or whatever prompt, turn on Siri. But the Pros have a gyroscope, and what that means is that when you pair them with like a depth camera or something, they can tell the orientation of your head so that like they can place sound in the room, like you have a surround sound set up around you. So that if you like turn your head when you're watching a movie, your ears will think that the sound is staying in the same place.
Wow. That's pretty good.
And like it makes me kind of optimistic about the direction they're going for AR going forward. It makes me excited about it in a way that I kind of was not. So I think this is a really good. Like, I mean, the big question I have is that the last couple of iOS releases have been kind of like buggy good. This should be a buggy.
All right.
If they continue the current cadence, I'm hopeful. It has a lot of big changes, so I'm kind of okay either way. But if it would be nice if it was good. Especially
14.1, like we said.
Yeah, but
if you're not dying for it,
or 14.A1. Let's see. Yeah. Throw the dice.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about? Last thing on games. They're adding Game Center and they're giving Game Center an interface again.
I'm sorry. You mean they are restoring Game Center?
Look, it's Game Center has been on hiatus.
Sure. What a weird situation. Like they just like, at one point they were just like, hey, the Game Center app is gone. You still have a username. You still sign into it. There are still achievements. It gives you pop-ups when you're in games, but no more Game Center. Now it's back.
It's weird. On the future front, one of the things I think is really neat is if you have an iPhone 11, that UWB chip, the ultra wideband U1 chip that can uses high frequency radio to get directionality on things is accessible for games now. So presumably you can have like a game where you're flicking a puck or something at somebody who's across the room from you and like the vectors are right and all. I don't know what that game is, but it might be weird and cool. I'm excited about it.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. So that's iOS 14. Like I said, the MKBHD video I think was my favorite. The Verge one was really good. Dieter did a good job with the Verge one. We'll post both in the show notes so you can check them out. And a bunch of people in the Discord have been talking about this for the last few days, which is kind of why I went and watched these videos. So thank you for all the intrepid early testers who are now going to make me break my 5-year streak of not installing iOS betas.
Yeah.
You bastards.
What phone are you on?
A 10.
Still a 10.
So mid range at this point.
Okay. Is this an upgrade year for you, do you think?
Let's see how the rest of maybe, I don't know.
Well, yes, obviously it's a
financial considerations.
It's a lot of extra considerations. Sure. Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to wait and see how that stuff goes. Is it weird? I have an iPhone 8. Is it weird that this just reinforces my desire to trade up to an SE? Like all this, that mostly goes to all the multitasking stuff I was talking about. Like, it's not like the 8 is a slouch exactly, but like the SE is so fast for the money that like, I just feel like throwing as much horsepower at all these features as I can might be a good idea.
Well, so since I stopped reviewing phones for a living, we moved to a Gina getting the good phone policy because she takes way more pictures than I do. And when I pick up her 11, the thing that is striking is how fucking fast that thing is. Like, the FaceTime is really fast. The camera's really fast. The portrait mode stuff is incredibly fast. All of the things that are like not slow, but kind of bumbling, awkward on the 10.
Okay.
Feel real good over there. So I don't know. Let's see what they do. I'm going to wait and see. Like, I'm at the same time, I'm kind of like, this phone is great. It's still good. I got a fresh one right when the 11 came out because my battery was swelling. So I'm like, I don't know. I could ride it out another year. Probably. We'll see.
Sure.
I might get a watch. It seems like the stuff that they're doing with health monitoring on the watch seems maybe good enough for me to violate my rule on. Like, it would be nice to have the thing tell me if my family history of heart problems is going to cause an immediate problem in the next 10 minutes.
It's the least they could do for you after retiring your old model.
Yeah.
Is try to prevent you from dying.
Yeah. I'd pay $300 to not die. I'd have to be an asshole to not do that.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right. ARM books.
It's called a MacBook.
Okay.
They the rumors were true. Mm-hmm. They announced a 2-year roadmap for full transition, soup to nuts across the board. Every Mac by 2022, end of 2022, presumably, is going to be running a family of Apple designed SoCs, system on chips.
Apple Silicon is the phrase I kept seeing them use.
Yeah.
Sounds very fancy. I probably am going to pepper you with the same question multiple times throughout this, which is to ask if you were, I guess you were in tech and covering this stuff when the PowerPC to Intel transition happened, right? So
yes, absolutely.
The question is just going to be like, is this how it was before? Basically, like how did they handle this the last time for X, Y, and Z in this conversation? For example, I mean, was there this much of a grace period or an overlap with that transition? I didn't cover that stuff professionally, but in my memory, it happened a lot faster than 2 years.
I feel like it was. Well, I mean, the product line was much less complex then too.
That's true.
Because there were iMacs, there were MacBooks, and there were Mac Pros rather. Like, there was no MacBook Air, there was no MacBook only. Mac Mini, I guess, was still a thing. I feel like it rolled out a lot the same way, except for they went the high end first and rolled down to the mobile. I can't remember actually.
Okay.
They might have. I feel like when the MacBook Air came out, that was really that was not right. That was all done well before that. The MacBook Pro, the aluminum unibody MacBook Pros were Intel first. And that was a big deal. That's when they got rid of all the plastic stuff. The thing that happened was they reached the end of the performance line for the IBM G series of processors. And it made a ton of sense. The software transition was awkward. Like, if you think about it, there were 2 big Apple architecture transitions in the modern age before that. The other one was from the Motorola chips to the IBM PowerPC chips, the G series chips. And that one is where I feel like that's where everybody stopped using Quark and started using InDesign in publishing, because Quark didn't transition fast enough and lost an incredible amount, like 99% market share to Adobe in like a year.
Wow.
But yeah, so everybody, like, after that, Adobe's always been pretty good about moving stuff over to the new platforms. I like this, I predicted this when Apple started making their own ARM chips 8 years ago. And I it makes a ton of sense, right? Apple spent the last 10 years living by Intel's roadmaps. And if Intel's GPU sucks, or Intel doesn't add a machine learning acceleration, or it doesn't add whatever feature they want in their hardware, then they either have to put a separate chip in, or they have to hope that Intel decides to support it the next year and use their leverage to make that happen.
And underneath all of that, even if they're getting everything they want when they want it, we're still talking about a family of chips that was not designed, from a mobile first perspective, right? Like, in terms of power consumption, heat, battery life, all that stuff. Like, x86 is not the most efficient mobile platform.
Well, yeah, and just to be clear, Apple has spent literally tens, maybe even hundreds of billions of dollars at this point developing the A series ARM SoCs, and you don't spend that kind of money and then just keep buying the good enough processors from the next guy when your thing is fast enough to do what you want.
Yeah.
So it makes a ton of sense. They announced Mac OS 11, Big Sur.
Yes.
Go OS on. 11.
Yeah.
Arabic 1, Arabic 1.
This makes me sad.
Really?
I'm not sure why. It's hard to put my finger on it. I like the OS 10 name. I was sad. I was already sad that they kind of like soft rebranded it as Mac OS.
I think it's funny that now Windows is behind again after saying they're going to stick with 10 for the next 10 years.
That's what they get.
They're one number back.
You can't chase those brands, man. You got to set the standards.
Honestly, I was kind of surprised that Microsoft didn't call it the Xbox 5 this year, just to get parity.
It would be very like them.
So yeah, it's 2 OSs this time. One is ARM only, one is for Intel Macs. They're going to keep making OSs for Intel Macs for a while, it seems like.
Doesn't seem like much new in this version of Mac OS. I assume this is a transitional release. Like they're focusing on getting the new architecture right.
So often with the Mac OS releases, well, there was a lot of new UI stuff. Like they redesigned the user interface a ton. It's not.
Yeah. The like Control Center is in there. It's not nothing, but there's nothing gigantic.
I mean, as a Mac OS user, I don't want anything gigantic. I want them to just not fuck it up.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
They're saying that apps kind of just recompile, which is something I'm always really skeptical of.
Yeah. I think that was just for Xcode.
Well, I mean, I guess you can make Mac apps on not Xcode.
Yeah.
My guess is that the only way to make Mac apps going forward is going to be on Xcode.
Yeah, you're probably right. At least for a while.
Yeah. At least the only way, and even if you make your app, like we've packaged stuff for iOS before, you still have to run it through Xcode to put it on the Apple store, on the Mac, on the iOS store. So iPad and this is a shocking thing to me. iOS and iPad OS apps will just show up in the App Store on the Mac App Store when you have an ARM Mac, which is bonkers.
Why is that shocking to you?
Because they're designed for different interfaces. Like, how do you map a mouse and keyboard to a touchscreen?
That was definitely my first question.
Yeah.
When they said they were doing this, but at the same time, why wouldn't they do this, right?
I mean, it makes sense, but I wonder if there are new like translation layer APIs, or if they're just going to put touchscreens on all these ARM Macs all of a sudden, finally. Because like, if you look at it, they're really the only laptop manufacturer that isn't shipping at the very minimum touchscreens as an option.
Sure.
So, I don't know about that. We'll see. Boot Camp for Windows, you won't be able to boot camp over to Windows. It seems like you won't be able to run Windows in a VM on these, which is probably fine.
Yeah.
They're including Linux VMs as options, presumably for like web developers who want to be able to have their dev environment running locally on their machines. If they support, so they are doing backwards compatibility for old Intel based apps, presumably for a while. They killed that after like 3 or 4 revisions of OS 10 back in the day with the G5 transition. But, they're going to be slow.
Yes.
Alternately, if you have an app that the developer has just compiled to run on both Intel and ARM, you'll download the universal. It's called a universal 2 binary.
Why didn't they just call it a universal binary?
Because universal binary is G5 and x86.
No, I know that. Yeah. I know that, but that was like 15 years ago, man.
Well,
who still needs to worry about that transition?
Didn't they just turn that off? Like with the first California named Mac OS?
Wait, really?
Yeah,
that Rosetta stuff.
Maybe it was Snow Leopard. It wasn't that long ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
That feels like because they're also using the phrase or the name Rosetta 2, which I also think is kind of hilarious branding.
Rosetta harder.
But yeah, maybe that stuff has been in use since somewhere in some like dusty old publishing shop that never upgraded until very recently. I don't know.
Yeah. It's like that. It's weird. They demoed a bunch of apps running on ARM at the thing at the keynote, including Photoshop and Office.
I think. Yeah.
Final Cut X. Presumably, this is the end of the road for Final Cut 7. Sorry, people who've been hanging on to a 32-bit app from like 10 years ago. I'm interested to see what happens with like the compute heavy apps like Media Encoder and stuff like that traditionally lag these new changes. And, I know that you can accelerate H.264, H.265 encoding on silicon, but I don't know that people will buy the quality you get out of that if they don't actually get it right. So, especially for like film, like, is Spielberg going to be okay with hardware accelerated H.265 encoding? I don't think so.
Yeah.
And they're shipping dev kits soon so that people can build start testing their apps. It's a $500 Mac Mini that it seems like you maybe have to return at the end and don't get your $500 back. I don't know.
Huh.
I mean, look,
not a great deal.
If you sell apps on the App Store, if you have a product, $500 doesn't matter. If you don't, it does, right? No. I get why they would do that to not be hassled by a bunch of dipshits. So yeah, that's Mac OS on ARM. It seems, and like I said, you'll be able to get on your Intel Macs. I think the cutoff for this one is MacBook Pros. Late 2013 MacBook Pros get this new Mac OS, and early 2013 MacBook Pros do not.
Got it. I think. Yeah. I happened to notice at the end of the R story, there's just a little anecdote here so this is the A12Z, which is, I believe, what's in the current iPad Pro.
Yes,
is what these first laptops will be based on.
Well, it's what the Mac Mini is based on. The developer kit is. We don't know that I don't think they said what the first first products will be announced at the end of this year, presumably.
Oh, that's just the dev kit. Okay.
So I would guess they'll be based on the A13 version of this, not the A12
well, even
version
better then. But at any rate, at least in a Geekbitch context, ours says that chip is equivalent to a 2019 MacBook Pro that has a Core i9 in it, which
that's bonkers, right?
It's kind of eye-opening for me. Like an i9 is, that's about as good as you're going to get in the laptop space right now. Like, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So for me, we talked about this in May. I'm really curious to see how these chips, like they make different spins of the chips for iPhones and iPads already. I'll be interested to see if they make desktop, if they add how many more SKUs of chip they add. Do they add a laptop chip, or is the iPad chip and the Mac OS chip basically the same? Do they add a desktop chip that's like just a big honker and you put a huge heatsink on?
Right. Like that's what the R story said, was like that's the iPad Pro version of that chip that they're comparing to the i9.
Yeah.
So with like more potential for thermal dissipation and stuff like that, more cooling and so forth. Like, who knows what they push that to? Like could be exciting.
I am interested to see.
Yeah.
So I guess
I continue to think that the California National Parks naming scheme for macOS is terrible.
It's pretty California centric.
Not only that, not only is it a little bit navel gazing, but it's very hard to keep track of, I find.
I don't remember, and I used to be paid to keep track of this stuff.
There you go then.
Yeah. Mojave, that was one. I don't know which one.
Sure. It's one of them's got a forest. I guess the other one's a desert. I don't know what's going on.
Every once in a while, Craig Ferengi says weed, because there's a place in California called Weed.
Like, I'll put it this way. If you can't remember the releases by their default wallpaper because they're all just landscapes, it's kind of a problem.
Yep. There you go.
Anyway.
So I guess that's it. That's kind of the high points. If you found stuff that you liked in the iOS beta, let us know. I think they're going to open it up to everybody in July. So,
is that new?
No, they usually do. Like, that's one of the things that's actually made iOS not a flaming train wreck at launch.
Okay.
Because they've done a wide public beta that anybody can sign up for.
Oh, okay.
They also provide a mechanism that you can roll back to the previous version if the beta messes up something you actually need. So while it's not advisable to put it on your primary phone, it's not disastrous if it doesn't go well for you.
Sure.
And you don't have to use weird jailbreaking tools to make it work right. But yeah, I'll let you know. I don't know, maybe in the letters episode or the patron episode or something next week. Cool. So how it goes.
Yeah, this is pretty impressive. Like, this is the most, like, I don't know if excited is the word I would say, but impressed. This is the most impressed I've been with a set of Apple announcements in a while. Like, it feels like a positive step forward for them in some ways where they have traditionally been maybe a little bit stodgy.
I mean, it's weird. The R's thing, it's funny you mentioned that, and I think now I'm like, well, it's weird that they have really good hardware and the OS has consistently lagged because of some weird like philosophical,
right?
Like there's some philosophical stuff that they do that I really like the focus on privacy and security is very important to me,
right?
But on the other hand, like not being able to click a fucking link in an app and it opened the browser I want to use instead of their crappy browser blows,
right?
So totally. Here we are.
Like even Microsoft is open sourcing a bunch of their stuff now. Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Get with the times. Like everybody, like open standards, openness, and like choice are the way forward.
Yeah, there you go. So I guess that's as good a place as any to wrap it up. As always, it's the last episode of the month, as we discovered early in the show.
Yeah.
So
hopefully the people, the folks can live without the emails for one more week.
We'll do.
Sorry about going off schedule.
We'll get some emails in there for you all. As always, thanks to our executive producer level patrons, Kurt Brownridge, Jacob Chappell, Andrew Cotton, David Allen, David Allen, rather.
Yes.
Thank you all so much. But also, since it's the end of the month, we always thank our associate producer level patrons as well, who are Dave Yulian, Dan Brockman, Jad Rita, Sam Buck, Thomas Shea, Graham Banks, and Paul Roost. Thank you all so much. And thanks to all of our patrons.
Yes, absolutely.
If you would like to find out how to support the podcast, get your name read at the end of next month or next week, whichever, or get access to the TechPod Discord, you can find out at patreon.com/techpod. That's patreon.com/techpod. And yeah, the Brad, I think I can't remember if I said this last week, but I gave up and I finally added a mechanical keyboard chat to the Discord.
It was becoming a thing.
And I've been spending time in there.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting for some drops. So maybe I'll do a mechanical keyboard building stream or something at some point.
I would give that a look. I'm not quite sure I'm ready to hop in, but you know, I'm mechanical curious at this point.
Should we do a mechanical keyboard episode?
I don't know about that.
You don't want to get that far?
Hang on. Let me we'll see if my personal interest is there before I commit to anything.
Back. Okay.
The clackiness, like I get that the clacky is satisfying, but from an open microphone perspective, it is
problematic.
Yeah.
But you know, there's an infinity of keys and some of them are very quiet. Very quiet.
A key for every interest.
Thank you so much to all of our patrons. And thank you, Brad. It's always a pleasure, man.
Yes.
At the end of a difficult week, it is always lovely to sit down and have a good chat. So
yes, I don't know how many more weeks of escalation we can take.
I'm just going to go on vacation next week, maybe.
I know more and more people who are doing that, and I like every time it happens, I'm like, oh right, vacations. That's a thing that you can do.
Yeah, you're supposed to do that. I think
even if you can't leave, you can still take time off, right?
I don't think I've really taken a vacation in the last 5 years, and that's probably not healthy.
That's not good, man.
Yeah, no. Okay, well, we'll be back next week when we'll do a patron episode at some point very soon. So thank you all so much, and see you all next week.